Hello, it's day 141 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlins Nyback, and pleasure to be with you again. I'm here trying to tease out two major thoughts of my mind. First thought is this: the black mind perpetuating itself from generation to generation in regards to slavery, ignorance, impotence in the world. Second thought, second half of the first thought, it's like flipping a coin over. On the flip side, we have the white mind of privilege, entitlement, um, expectation of favor. Is that being educated, reinforced by environment, history, um, generation to generation? Stick around, you'll get my thoughts about that. But I want us to think. Thinking is the most important part. If we don't, if nothing changes on the outside, at least our minds can be new and fresh. And that's where change starts anyway. Second thought is for financial literacy, especially for black folks. If you're white here, if you're white, thanks for tuning in. But financial literacy for black folks, we don't talk about money. We don't understand money. We don't understand how we're being used, how, how groups hostile to black prosperity, advancement, and whatnot, they love to take our money. They love to use us for the menial, worst jobs and all this stuff, and take our money, our disposable income. But what about fellowship? What about equality in business practices and such? So we don't find that as openly and readily as we would like here in America, I believe. So that those are the two major issues here today. The financial issue is pretty important because, unfortunately, white folks kind of have paved the way before us, and there's a lot of systems in place that they control and run, and we black folks need to start educating ourselves through repetition, whatever, But I don't agree that we just have to be, oh, this passive participant in the world. One of my core beliefs is that, I'm born into the world, therefore a piece of the world is mine. It belongs to me. I'm not here to serve some system that's been here long before me and stuff like that. Now that I especially understand how this American white system works, it's like, no, I didn't sign up for that, and I'm not obligated to participate in the way in which I'm coerced to participate. Not right. I'm inspired and educated, although I felt a lot of these things long before I ran into this information, but I'm inspired and educated by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I want you to get these books. If you get this book especially, this will get you on your way. He's written a lot. He's all over YouTube. Easy to find. But it changed my life. It's the frame where he articulates what's going on with me, and he shows how my oppression, the way it prevails, manifests itself systemically in America. Incredible that I ran into this guy. Black History Reader, 101 questions you never thought to ask. Black labor, white wealth, search for power and economic justice, and Dr. Anderson's national plan to empower Black America. Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. And if you do have the resources. We are in the Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Today, page 59. Behind me, you see the hashtag #US2 symbol. Black women are here conversing and supporting one another. Check out Blog Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a Black Facebook. And if you found me here on the World Wide Web, here at YouTube, then you are technologically literate and you can find your community. And if you're not finding what you're looking for, start your own. Do your own video log. I have a very small private audience, private email that I don't sell, and have people's emails inundated with junk. So I don't sell my your email if you connect with me. But you want to do this if you're feeling pressure, whatever side of the line you're on, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Arab. If there's issues in your heart, let it out. Be here, do it safely. My two major commandments that I try to keep: do no harm to self, do no harm to others. Very simple. I think the world will get along so much. Just two simple things. And finally, every once in a while we have story time, looking at Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, Fictional Life of Slave Life in America. She's got a bunch of different things going on, and she's handling a lot of personalities, and then it's a rich text. And we just left off with George and Eliza are going to come together. They're running away. They're heading to Canada. Quakers have taken them in, so we're tracking that. Chapter 13 is where we left off. Okay. Today I'm going to try to articulate some pretty dense material. It has to do with blacks being considered 3/5 of a human being. Now that's not big language nowadays because of the 12th, 13th, and 14th Amendments, which came after what we're going to talk about. But what we're going to talk about is we're going to parse out some of the seminal systemic foundational language and attitude embedded, woven into the fabric of the underpinnings of this nation. This nation, we're created and founded on my education in school was, we're escaping religious persecution at one point. Oh, well, this taxation without representation is a big issue. Those are parts of it, but it doesn't. There's big chunks and gaps in that history, and it doesn't. The machine just doesn't run until you put some oil in, so the pieces move and slide. In this case, the oil is black skin, black people of a darker skin color being used to make this big white European colonial machine run. So today, the 3/5 of a human being issue, we're going to explain that. It's an important discussion. It's in Dr. Anderson's Black History Reader. And so we're going to go back to the year 1820, very important year, and something you may have heard of or understand. You go ahead and Google this, the Missouri Compromise. In that is the language that talks about black people being 3/5 of a human being. Uh, and I want to. There's a couple of layers we're going to get to in this short time. Number one is the language that we have embedded in the Constitution. You'll notice with laws, most laws they rarely overturn or repealed. We will just heap some more laws on top of them to try to obscure them or put them away. But if you go, what I was talking about, I think we talked recently more about the Dred Scott uh, incident where a black man has no rights that a white man should respect. That kind of language is in the Constitution. It's a Supreme Court ruling, but Supreme Court rulings, Constitution, these things set precedents. So when issues come up and have a lot of momentum and need resolution, uh, it's customary, though not obligatory, for the parties to seek precedents. What happened before? What was decided before? Why and how? You know. So Dred Scott decision is one example. Now that's never been overturned. You just have adjustments to the Constitution. We got civil rights, social integration, but it's still you're still not explicitly saying. The Supreme Court's not saying, okay, now white men have to respect a black man's rights and decisions. We just have laws that make it illegal to discriminate. Uh, and whatnot. So we'll get understand that how this country it does a lot of political trickery and talking out both sides of its mouth on issues. Now the point, bottom line, is to keep white power, the white structure in control, uh, so that it suffers no loss. You know, even we even have a president, black president, but so what? You know, the the black president didn't speak out on these issues. It was black president, but presenting himself to this unified nation. Matter of fact, now that I look back, that summer, maybe that summer 2015, 2016 might have been the bloodiest summer of white cops killing black men that I've seen in my lifetime, under a black president's administration. Possibly. I got to check my dates on that. So Dred Scott example. So history is woven with this language and stuff like that. We got this Missouri Compromise, and let's try to talk about that and articulate that a little bit. Missouri was a slaveholding state, and so it wants to enter the Union. Now, what I mean by Union, not Northers, not Union Confederate, the difference between North and South, but the whole Union, the country was a union. They considered themselves a union. The Confederacy didn't begin until those southern states started seceding from the Union. So there's the Union. Missouri wanted to come in 1820. Now, this was a problem because now that the way the legislature, the House and the Senate were configured, were that, especially the House was configured where the representation was determined by population. So, you had a white minority essentially in the South, but they're commanding droves of slaves. and the slaves would represent a some human capital if they had come in as whole, full human beings. So they, as Missouri is being considered for this, the North is starting to shake because, okay, if this Missouri comes in, then we're going to have a flood of these votes. Now, it's not the slaves voting. The master declared what the slaves' vote was going to be. Slaves didn't even have any clue about this stuff that was going on anyway. Because the slave was just personal property or farm animals or farm implement, just passive. Yet you see the hypocrisy there that they had no rights, they had no say, yet they were represented in voting and decision making of the nation. And I wonder what the decisions would be for that. You got your slave masters going off occasionally to these meetings or whatever, and this guy is just putting extra nails in the coffin to keep you oppressed, but using your physical presence as ammunition on the floor of the house and stuff like that. Man, that's brutal. That's brutal. So they created this, so they had a compromise. So the problem is this: when it came to counting state voting populations to determine the state's number of representatives in the Congressional and Electoral College, slaveholders demanded that their slaves be counted as human voters, even though they were not permitted to vote. That was the problem. Um, uh, so the Missouri Compromise was this, for Missouri to come in, and Missouri kind of had to come in because that was our western border at the time, as the United States is growing and prospering. So we're securing our western border is what's going on overall, and since Missouri was going to be part of the South, the southern states, overall, they made this big blanket statement that the South would pay no property taxes on black slaves. Now remember that. We're going to get back to that. No property taxes on black slaves. And number two, the slaves would count as 3/5 of a human being for voting and congressional representation. Now, I do a little bit of mathematics. I mention this every once in a while. I'm not going to go into a big thing about it. But for these purposes, every 5 slaves represented 3 votes. So the North, in this compromise, they diluted the power a little bit, but not enough. And the southern states were capitalizing on not paying taxes on this property and things like that. So the South just had a windfall. It's called the Missouri Compromise, but they should have called it the Missouri windfall for the South. And that was the some of the facets, two of the major points: no taxes, and the slaves are 3/5 of a human being. This compromise entrenched around 200 years of power for the South, because they're the ones they're voting slave interest and all this stuff. This is the tensions that are rising between North and South. Not the treatment of slaves and all the things we find in Uncle Tom's Cabin and the things we talk about here, but voting rights, power in Philadelphia, I think the capital may still be there in 1820, but those are the issues going on. Now, the specific wording for that, this 3/5 of a human being, is you find that in Section 2 of the Constitution. Now, this is before the 12th, 13th, and 14th Amendments. Some of the specific wording. Shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within the Union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, those indentured servants, excluding Native Indians, the Native Americans, not taxed, and 3/5 all other persons are black people. They're implying inference to black people without being explicit. They're being very adroit there with the language. Dr. Anderson has here, they framed slavery and its rules without even mentioning the word. Very, very clever there. Now, this black people being counted as 3/5. I wanted to point that out because in our argument for exclusivity, this comes up because I've been challenged by some, like, to include LGBTQ, women, children, handicapped, Hispanics, any aggrieved group. No aggrieved group has language like this embedded in the foundation and fabric of the nation. But we're going through policy after policy, and we can do things quickly nowadays, but we're talking about institutional, systemic focus on oppressing a people because of the color of their skin only. These other groups are not mentioned in the text in any way. So black people do need to be exclusive and focused in getting their act together. All these other groups, they almost get a pass when they come up for reaching out and determining access to some rights and resources. But you notice that the legislation goes pretty fast on that, and again, it's positive in their favor. Black people just have to bear a very long, arduous journey through all this, and the language prevails, the attitudes prevail, discrimination still lives, hate against blacks is real and continues to this day. That's the issues going on now. We'll close out with this. There's a 3-point injury to black folks that Dr. Anderson has noted here. There's a Missouri Compromise. We got another state entering as a slave-holding southern state, sympathetic to southern ideas. Now think about that. Think about something like that today. Hell, I'd be part of a tax-exempt issue going on. With our financial literacy, you get to your financial literacy, you see corporate entities, business structures, and things like that, and you see these type of loopholes. These things are created. From reading Adam Smith back in the mid-1700s, his work and what was going on, tax exemption and fiddling with the books, so to speak, is nothing new. But you see it prevail, but you see it like on steroids when it came to handling slaves and the slave issues. Second injury with the 1820 Missouri Compromise, um, uh, the black slaves would be counted as part of the total population, but they were an impotent, silent, uh, gagged majority. They were just numbers on the books. You know, I got 15 slaves. That's nine votes. Okay, I just did some math for you. Every 5 slaves is 3 solid votes. You know, so I mean, think about that. Thomas Jefferson had a lot of land and a lot of slaves. And he was a slave sympathizer. So that kind of thing is going on. And here's the introduction of the Electoral College system that reduced power of the popular vote. And we saw this especially with our 2016 election. Electoral College comes in and overrules it. Probably functions in a more sophisticated way. But here you have, popular vote, but then the Electoral College has kind of exercises more power. And I think we're going to see, I might see in my lifetime, the death of the Electoral College and see just a firm um, decision to stick with the popular vote, because it was very raised a lot of eyebrows, I think, on both sides of the aisle, in a very bipartisan way. Like, the why am I going to the voting booth if these other guys are just going to do some kind of magic in behind closed doors and redacted reports and overrule what the majority is saying? So that's a problem. Some things to look out for and expect in the coming years. Um, that's a very dense. It's a very dense question that 3/5 of human being. But it's important because that's the foundation of America. America just got a lot of bad stuff, and America's never repented of these sins. America's never given the established proper reparations. There are too many incidents after any kind of emancipation of towns being sacked, lynchings going on, the burnings, the rapes, people burned alive in public, no court trials, people shot dead on the street, black people, by white people, no court case, you know, very, very hard to get that. We got Medgar Evers killer and got the guy that we believe shot Dr. King and stuff. I don't remember any convictions behind Malcolm X. But these things go on. The mass shootings by white cops on black men, that rarely. Cops may lose their job or something like that. But no strong convictions for white cops gunning down black people. That's a problem. So this nation is still there. These ghosts and specters, discriminations, all these things still alive, still very much entrenched here in America. Um, Hence, that's why we make laws. See, it would be different if you could make the law and these things go away, but the law only addresses public, the public representation of the discrimination. The law cannot address the heart of man. We see that in the Bible. It's the same way in America. I'd hate to see like if I could just see America's laws in just one space. It would probably fill this room. We got a lot of material and arguments, transcripts, I'm sure, but no change. No change. Very sad. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. That's day 141 out of the way. 3/5 of a human being. Do your own research. If you don't understand that, this is all still new information to me that I'm trying to articulate. So I'm trying to educate myself as I go along. But like I said, look it up for yourself. It's all over. You can Google it. Instant information. Thanks again. Hang around. We'll see what we'll get into tomorrow. Bye-bye.